All right, there we go. So we're recording. So Washington didn't say we couldn't cooperate or deal with other nations, but he warned about getting super entangled. That's my interpretation. You know, really entangled with other nations. We didn't want to get so entangled that we were dependent upon them. So that began a time, as is mentioned on page 660, of a foreign policy or a foreign policy philosophy of isolationism. We want to stay independent as much as possible from other nations. And so it was called an isolationist foreign policy philosophy. Pop culture rabbit trail here. One of the greatest movies ever made 30 years ago this year in 1991, where one guy says to another, "What is this, isolation therapy?" Does anybody know what movie that is? It's a classic. Bill Murray, Richard Dreyfuss, What About Bob? You got to watch it. Anyway, isolationism, though, was our policy when we began as a nation, for the most part, when it came to foreign affairs. All righty, I'll come back to those things. Here's what I'm talking about when it comes to foreign policy. The first 150 years, we had this policy of isolationism as it was rooted in Washington's farewell address. Because remember, Washington was just basically saying goodbye. He wasn't passing a policy. He wasn't passing a law. He just suggested America should avoid entangling alliances with other nations. And so the nation kind of followed that advice. In 1823, I want you to know this, the Monroe Doctrine was a doctrine when who was president? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? You can just give me his last name if you know it. Begins with an M. Ends with an E. President
Monroe.
Monroe, yes. Yay. When he was president, he established the Monroe Doctrine, which said this in a nutshell: Europe, don't mess with the affairs of any country in North or South America. We, the United States, are going to be basically the police for the Western Hemisphere. So you stay out, Europe. Britain, you stay away from us. Spain, don't mess with Brazil, whatever it might have been. We, the United States of America, the new kids on the block, 40 years old, we'll take care of things in the Western Hemisphere. So you can see that this doctrine built upon isolationism. But not only did it build on isolationism, it also extended to where we weren't going to be completely isolated, because now if something happens, let's say in Cuba, or something happens in Colombia, we're going to get involved. That is, if a country, say like Portugal, were to come over and try to mess with Colombia, we're going to then get involved. So it still kind of was isolationism, but it also kind of broadened it a little bit. Okay, so the first 150 years, we pretty much stayed isolationist. What happened after that 150 years that would have what happened that would have caused us to be a little bit more open to foreign help? We're talking about the 1850s into the 1860s. Anybody? Fry, Bueller, Voodoo Economics. That's all from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, by the way. It was a conflict that we had only in America. Our most bloodiest battle to date. The Civil, anybody?
War.
The Civil War.
Yeah. The Civil War, the War of the States, the War of the Union. So when that started to happen, there were countries that wanted to help the South break away from the North. So we got into some alliances there. All right, back to sharing. Now I mentioned the Truman, I'm sorry, I didn't. I mentioned the Monroe Doctrine. Here's a couple more doctrines that you need to be aware of. The Roosevelt Corollary, and I'm not going to ask you this time because I think you kind of get the idea. This was named after a certain president, Roosevelt, and it's the first Roosevelt, our man Teddy. Teddy added a corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. He said that the U.S., United States, has a right to intervene in the affairs, domestic affairs of our neighbors in North and South America. If they could not keep their own houses in order, then we have the right to intervene. So he really took the policeman philosophy one step further. Does anybody know what his famous motto was when it comes to foreign policy? Oh, somebody knows.
Speak softly and carry a big stick.
Yes. All right. There might be a nice picture of him in here. Or maybe I have it on the slides. Let me see here. Oh, I must have got rid of it. Speak softly and carry a big stick. So he believed in diplomacy first, speak softly, but show them that big stick when you're speaking softly so they know who's got the power. Now, then there was another doctrine that was introduced into our foreign affairs, our foreign policy during President Truman's time, the Truman Doctrine. This basically was the doctrine of containment. This basically said the United States is going to support people who want democracy, people who want freedom. Containment was a theory that, for example, this is taking it into the Korea and Vietnam era. If one country becomes a communist country, then its neighbors will also fall into communism. And so when you hear the word, when you hear containment, it's usually correlated with the domino theory. That theory is just as you push over one domino in a row of dominoes and it causes all of them to fall, one country, if it becomes communist, will then be a domino that will cause the other countries around it to fall or become communist. So our foreign policy philosophy of containment was to stop communism, to stop the dominoes from falling. So we, Korea in the 1950s was divided into North and South Korea. North Korea was right next to China. So we entered into the war and we were on South Korea's side and we fought against China. And we were worried about Russia getting involved. In the Vietnam conflict, North Vietnam was in relation with Russia and China. And so we fought in that conflict on behalf of South Korea, that the whole nation would not become communist. All righty. This is kind of out of order, so I apologize, but because World War I and II were before containment and the domino theory. But we entered into World War I because Germany attacked one of our submarines, and after Germany was defeated and all the powers with them, we went back into isolationism. We were brought back out of it once again in World War II when we were bombed by the Japanese in Pearl Harbor. And from that point on, we didn't go back to isolationism, but we entered into the Cold War and we entered into the containment policy. So we were isolationism, Then we started with those doctrines and those corollaries and the Civil War into World War I and II. We started finding ourselves pulled into alliances with other countries. It was kind of a policy of basically, we're forced to do this, but we want to stay isolationist. But then after World War II, we entered into the Cold War because during World War II, the Soviet Union was our ally. After we defeated Italy, Japan, and Germany, we entered into the Cold War, in which we were then at odds with the Soviet Union. Our ally just a few months before during World War II. The Soviet Union basically started expanding. They seized East Germany, and the capital of Germany, Berlin, was divided between East and West Berlin. We occupied, I could say we were allied with West Berlin and West Germany, and the Russians were allied with East Germany. That began the Cold War, and it led into the policy of containment. We felt like if Russia or the Soviet Union, they kept showing that they wanted to expand. And so we would try to stop that and contain it. That went on through the Vietnam era. And then in 1989, under Ronald Reagan's presidency, after his presidency, but in 1987, he made a very famous speech at the Berlin Wall. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And it was in November of '89, when your beloved instructor was a freshman in college, that the Berlin Wall came down. And it wasn't, but within a year's time, that the Soviet Union disbanded. The Soviet Union, which was the USSR, was basically it wasn't a democracy. It was more like a socialist alliance in which Russia was the strong power. It was an alliance of 15 countries. Well, after the Berlin Wall came down and people started wanting more freedom, eventually the USSR broke up, and those nations that were a part of the USSR became independent nations. So after Reagan, we had George H.W. Bush, Big George. During his time, we had kind of a foreign policy of multilateralism. This is where countries started to work together on an international level, economically, for security. Now it's led into the environment, right? And so even in a 1990 speech, so 31 years ago, Big George Bush talked about a new world order. Now we are in a time where there is the threat of terrorism. This was especially, this especially hit home on 9/11, 2001, which led to the Bush Doctrine. The Bush Doctrine says that if we are aware of a hostile threat, we will act preemptively. That is, if we become aware of a threat, we're going to act first and stop it before it can happen. So we are still in a time of terrorism where not necessarily our nations are our enemy, even though we do have some nations that we are concerned about, as you did in your brief on those 4 nations. But now we worry about terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So there's terrorist organizations. The nuclear threat has been around since the 80s when it was with Russia or with the USSR. As you did in your brief, you know that right now we're concerned about North Korea developing nuclear weapons. Make sure you go over these slides about conventional war, guerrilla warfare. Now we are in a time where we have to worry about cyber warfare. And if you guys are not aware of it, in the last few years, there have been cyber attacks from people or cells outside of America that have affected businesses or other entities in the United States. There's the threat of biological warfare. After the 9/11 attacks, there was somebody sending anthrax through the mail. Some people believe that the coronavirus is a part of biological warfare, that it was specifically designed by the Chinese to hurt the United States specifically. But anyway, make sure you go over all those slides as well as read the chapter. On this Friday, December 3rd, I will go over the main things that'll be on the exam. Since we will not meet, the exam, this is mostly for the Panama students. I'm going to ask that you do the exam at home by yourself. Don't do any groups, because there still seems to be too much word for word similar answers. And again, I know you guys are working together, but I would prefer you do the final by yourself, do everything in your own words. So, any questions on that flyover of chapter 18? Okay, who would like to present the bill? If you guys have it typed up, please email me a copy right now so I can put it on the screen. Who is going to talk about it? Did I appoint anybody as the Speaker of the House? Well, let me do that right now. Our House committee is Ella, Brendy Joe, and Morgan. So Ella, I will let you be the Speaker of the House today. Has somebody emailed me the bill yet? Okay, let me bring it up.
We're sending it to you right now.
Okay.
I'm working on it.
By the way, Jonathan, I won the photography contest.
Who won the photography contest?
Me, not Jonathan.
That was a good version, wasn't it, Ella?
What?
Were you watching that version while I was lecturing?
Last Christmas?
Yeah.
I watched it before you started.
Okay. But his voice is phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, I gave him a 12 out of 10.
I saw that. He sings like me when I was 11.
Did you get the email?
So am I presenting the whole bill?
Okay, I got it. So let me bring it up, everybody.
Nothing.
But you might need to help me explain something like this.
All right, Ella, if you will come and present it or you talk us through it. I've got it up on the screen now.
Crazy.
I don't know how to help you.
You don't have me.
Yeah, why don't one of you Senate persons come and help her?
Not crazy.
No, I'll pass.
Okay, let me see who they are. Jonathan's at home. Taylor or AJ or Sarah? One of
Sarah's right here.
Sarah's right here.
you. Okay.
I'm just pulling the bill up on my thing too.
Okay, let me make sure I got it up. Everybody see that now?
Nope.
And you guys need to mail a copy to Keely, Bryce, Elijah, Olivia, and Alyssa.
Want me to start presenting?
Let me bring it back up. Okay, yeah.
Well, we took all our numbers and all our bills and kind of the numbers were averaged together to find out what we all wanted to put the money towards.
Okay.
Right.
And the funds are at the bottom page where we say where we want to put them to.
Okay.
It was kind of agreed upon by everyone that we didn't want to give a whole lot of money to veganism or vegetarianism because it just doesn't seem as important as having a disease, not disease, I mean an allergy,
you choose to be vegan
or a religion that you believe in. So we just didn't think it was that important.
Okay.
Like if you want to be vegetarian, bring your own food.
If you want to be vegetarian, eat the salad. That's fine.
Yeah, eat the salad.
Eat the salad bar.
Okay.
Rabbit food.
We also found out that lactose intolerance is the number one, I can't find the word, allergy, with the percentage of school being the 65, and diabetes was the second, diabetes. And for things that you're born with, shellfish allergy was the third.
Okay.
So when we gave lactose intolerance the most amount of money, then diabetes, shellfish, we kind of just gave it a nut, and allergies and eggs. They get about the same. They're fine. They can deal with it.
We don't have eggs that often.
For the right above that, it says we have a thing from the CDC quote about how hunger, if kids don't get good nutritious food, they can have lower grades. And that came from the education department.
Okay.
And then there was from the nutrition part, there was that if kids have better food or better food choices, and they're less likely to skip school because they just don't want to eat the food.
Okay.
And
Imagine skipping school because the lunch is so good. You don't want to eat lunch. Man.
While you're thinking about that, does the 5,000 that can be used, is that a part of one of these? The 5,000 that can be used to
For testing?
Yes.
get the information, is that in one of these categories?
No, it's not. I didn't figure that. I figured that if they were already coming to school with like supplements or replacements, then they already knew they had the allergy.
Okay, so
But I can fix it around to contribute some money to that.
Well,
or
what I suggested, that when they enroll or whatever, that they just have a form that they fill out. Really, that shouldn't cost any money.
Yeah.
okay,
You know, because like if you come to the school and you fill out your enrollment every year anyways.
I'm sure you
If they just had a form,
like an
you know
extra
what I mean?
paper.
Yeah, like an extra paper. That's all it would be.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's already a thing on there, honestly.
okay.
if you want, we can set aside $10 for that.
$10 for
If you want.
A paper.
Okay, very good.
Got out of the veganism and vegetarianism.
more funds out of there, so they don't.
Yeah.
They can get $600. They can get $6,490. It's fine.
I'm really surprised how low celiac is, 1%. But anyway, is the 20,000 for the 1% because Cuban
Yes.
is okay? I was just wondering.
Because since he's donating the money, we think we should try and follow his wishes as best as possible while still understanding how little students there are.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned the 5,000. I would maybe put an asterisk there and then down below say any money needed for research but that's up to you. Or if it sounds like Keely's okay without it, so we won't worry about it.
We already added it to our Google Doc though, the asterisk, and
Oh, okay.
it's not on your PDF, but we added it to the Google
I'm
Doc.
making changes because I didn't change the names that were on the document, so I'm already on it anyway.
Okay. You can send that copy to Keely and the others.
Okay.
All right. Was there one more thing you was going to tell us?
Nope, I'm good.
Can I see the chat? I think I can put my email on the chat or whatever, and I'm gonna just email it to me.
Okay. These links up here at the top?
Yes.
There are links to sites that
They were used.
Okay.
We combine the bills. They're all the separate ones.
All righty. Very good.
At the very bottom, there's another source.
is our bill hyperlink.
Okay.
I'm working on.
All righty. Any questions?
Oh yes. You said to the evaluation for your class, like the course evaluation.
Yeah.
Where do we find that at?
I don't know. I don't send them out. Those
I
of you
think
who
I-
did it, where was
Let
that
me-
at? Is it on
I think it was on the course homepage.
Okay.
Like,
it's somewhere on the course, in the course page.
yeah, because it popped up when
I don't know
logged-
where, but I don't see those, so they don't send me one.
Okay.
Where'd it go?
All right. So if you got any assignments still unfinished, you want to get them done by Friday, remember, not Sunday. Keely and you two at Vian, and then Alyssa and Bryce, if you guys can maybe try to chat as you look over the bill. that would be great. Ultimately, it'll be Keely's decision. So we'll hear that on Friday. Whatever it is, you guys all get the bonus points because as we know, a president can either sign or veto. If there's no questions, we'll see you on Friday. Plan on seeing you Friday. Have a good Wednesday and Thursday.